this is the Environmental Protection Commission regular meeting, Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. First of all, we have a new Environmental Protection Officer replacing Rich Jacobson. His name is Rick Talamele, and he's been here for the last meeting, sort of listening in, etc. Tonight, we can put his feet to the fire. And so Rick has extensive experience from coming from Stanford and from other places. So we believe you have to take yourself off of mute. Okay, and so I think this is a great addition to our staff. And from having talked to him a lot, I think he's got some great ideas for EPC, how we conduct, how we operate, and most importantly for follow-up of our decisions. And so anyway, thank you. So the first thing is the review and adoption of the 2022 meeting schedule. Okay, I believe all the members have that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, and so are there any questions for anybody? No? Okay. Do I need a motion to adopt that?
Yes.
Yes.
I just, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just have one correction in the minutes, if I may.
Sure.
The
Oh,
minute.
but we're not talking about minutes, we're talking about the calendar for next year.
Oh, I thought we were talking about draft meeting minutes. I apologize.
Okay, the approval for minutes will be towards the end of the meeting. Peter?
Thank you. I see that on the agenda.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. So it's just we're setting up the meetings for next year so everybody can get them on their calendars and make sure there's, you know, sometimes we get a date wrong or something like that. And so I just want to make sure that you guys can plan ahead. And so
Great.
did anybody have any issue with that?
Eric, may I raise a question with you for everybody's benefit? It appears we may be meeting back in town hall, which I think is exciting and terrific. Is that the case?
Okay. It was one of the topics I was going to cover under other business, but we can talk about it now, which is to say there are other commissions that have chosen to meet in person. Okay, they typically don't get a big audience, etc. You know, I tend to view this like going. Well, I'm a Yankee fan, so I have to. So it's like going to Yankee Stadium and watching the game or watching it on TV. Okay, so I tend to think that there's a certain dynamic of people meeting in person and getting to know each other, things like that. That is important. It's my personal perspective. What I think we need to do is to, and Jeremy's suggestion is let's play this out and see how COVID goes as we go into the winter months, and then start in the beginning of January. Okay, and because our commission is 7, and you know, some of our meetings, you know, may be well attended at one point or another. And so that's my suggestion. But I'd like to hear if there's anybody who feels very strongly one way or another.
Is it a fair question, and a fellow New York Yankee fan, to ask, you're going to make a game day decision to meet at town hall, or?
No, we'll make a decision probably just next meeting in December, and say and that month, so you have a month to adjust your schedule, Jim, to not be at home but come downtown.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so I think that, but I want to make sure that all the commission members are comfortable coming in and being in person, and meeting in person here. So the rules of town hall currently are those who are vaccinated don't have to be masked. Those who are not vaccinated must be masked.
That's correct.
And so we'll play by those rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have feelings strongly one way or another? Peter, you okay?
No feelings one way or another. I mean, obviously, hopefully we'll see this thing go away over time. So we'll
Sure.
go and get back to it at some point.
Carolyn, you okay? Carolyn, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry. I was just saying, whatever you decide is fine with me.
Okay, but we'll decide as a commission. And so, okay, so we'll leave it at that, going forward. Okay, so now I need, Jim Millard, can you give me a motion to approve to adopt the 2022 meeting schedule?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the schedule as circulated by Jeremy and his team for the 2022 meetings for next year's EPC regularly scheduled meetings.
Okay, thank you. Bill Wright, can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Bill. Okay, then, without objection, so moved. Okay, so the next one is old business, EPC 17-2021, John Dalender, 32 Plymouth Road, proposing the construction of an elevated hardscape pool and pool house to the rear of the residence within an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 57 as lot number 36. I think there were some minor typos or something. Jim?
There were some minor typos that were corrected on the revised sheet.
Take yourself off of mute. My microphone will pick you up.
Yeah, there were some minor typos that have been corrected.
And I was looking over those myself. I did send those along to Jeremy and to Rick. Looking at them just before we started our meeting, I note that I may have suggested an addition of the word "and" in the wrong place on my own handwritten version. Rick, you probably picked that up.
I took care of it.
Thank you.
So we're going to, I think people have that. And is there anybody else who would like to comment on the approval letter and the conditions? Sure, Carolyn.
So it states that large trees are proposed to remain. I'm just wondering, are there any trees that will be removed? Any trees of significance?
I don't recall any. Do you
No,
recall any?
no.
I don't recall any. Rick? No. I don't think so. The bigger trees in the back were gonna stay, and there were really no small trees in that backyard area that I can recall. There wasn't one of them.
Okay. And then the other thing is, one of the conditions is the removal and proper disposal of accumulated brush and yard debris from the channel. And I'm just wondering, can we also just add there and that it's kept clean of such debris in the future?
Done. I think it's a great addition.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Here you go. Anybody else have some additions? Okay. Jim, may I have a motion to approve EPC 37-2021?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do move to approve the draft of the conditional approval for the application EPC number 37-2021 with respect, excuse me, to 32 Plymouth Road.
Great. Bill Wright, second?
Second.
Second. Okay. So moved without objection. I think it's unanimous. Around. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. The next one is amendment of EPC 40-2013, Megan Shanley, 27 Blueberry Lane, proposing to amend prior EPC approved plans by installing a small pool patio, pool fence, and stormwater management. The site is shown on assessor's map number 7 as lot number 28. Okay, what do we have for that to, what do we need for that to approve?
If you recall at the last month's meeting,
the commission went through the application to amend the actual permit and only identified 2 areas where they sought additional information, and that included a detailed landscaping plan and the details of the fence or the demarcation. Those were provided by the applicant,
And you forwarded them on.
and I forwarded them on to the commission members. And in my brief memo, I identified 3 conditions of the amendment that the board may consider, and all other conditions, terms and conditions of the prior permit would remain in full force.
Okay. Did everybody have that? Okay. Commission members, are there any comments or questions?
I guess I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, of Rick. I welcome Rick, and it's great to have you on board, and I know we're going to really benefit from your involvement. In the package that we all received, thanks to Jeremy and Rick's team in advance of tonight's meeting, there was a memo from Rick dated October 25. I don't get the same sense that you were looking for any commentary on that, although I saw a couple of places where it needed a couple of typo and corrections. This is not a draft of a conditional approval, I don't believe. Is that correct?
It's going to be the addition of it. We'll be writing an endorsement of the amendment, and there would be additional conditions of the amendment. And again, all the other terms and conditions of the original approval would remain in full force and effect.
So if I had any corrections for us for your memo of October 25, do you want those from me?
We'll take them into
Yes.
consideration. Yes.
Yes.
Do you want them now, or do you want me to send them to your office?
I'm sending to your office. Okay. Are they substantial? Are they substantial?
No, they're modest. They're extremely modest.
Okay, no, because, I'm just wondering if the other commission members want to see them, or if there's, commas and the insertion of an and. That doesn't change anything in a substantial way.
I'm expecting that the brilliant commissioners that I share this dais with will have seen all of them. And one of them is the spelling of Megan's Shanley's name in the top of page 2, I think is different than on page 1. And I think in the first bullet on the middle of page 2, the word removal shows up a couple of times, and that's just a little cleanup language. And the font size changes at the very second to last line.
Oh, yeah.
So as I hopefully suggested when we got started there, it was extremely modest.
I'm glad I never had you for an English teacher.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And the removal of.
Congratulations, Jim. That's pretty impressive. Okay.
Great.
With those changes, do I need a motion to approve or within a minute? Okay. Okay. With those changes as proposed by Jim, would you kindly make a motion to approve this amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As drafted with the help of Rick Telemelli and the revisions we've just discussed, I propose that these be amended for the file.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Second. Without objection, so moved. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Sorry about the misspelling of your name.
No problem.
Moving on here, we have EPC-38-2021, Gabriel and Catherine Olivero, 49 Goodwives River Road, proposing a house addition, patio, and expansion of the underground detention system in an upland review area. The site is shown on the assessor's map as number 49 and as lot number 8. Okay, you want to bring us up to date?
At the October 6th meeting, if you recall, the commission took this application under consideration. Based on the discussion, the commission sought additional information pertaining to potential ground impacts, the performance of the drainage system, including the sump pump system, and certain slope stabilization and planting measures that had been proposed. In response, applicant provided information that was included in your packages, including a couple of letters and concerning drainage and their particular responses to those items, and a revised plan. The revised plan shows some changes to the existing drainage system that is out there and what they're going to do to further mitigate impacts of the development proposal. I can tell you that I have referred the matter to engineering and have reviewed it, and they have provided some de minimis comments as well, looking for some the pipe sizes and the out control structures. But I see that Harry Rocheville is here this evening, and I'm sure he'll be available to answer his questions, as will I.
Okay. Harry, you want to?
Sure. Harry Rocheville, McCourt Engineering, represent the Oliverios. I'd be happy to just give a brief overview of what's changed since the last meeting.
Appreciate it.
I mean, the big point of concern last meeting was the depth of the basement beneath the ground level. We went back out on about a week ago to do soil testing, October 21st to be exact, and we dug down to 9 feet where the addition is going. That got us to approximately 1.5 feet below the basement slab, and we didn't hit any groundwater or ledge. No modeling either. Only when we got to the bottom of the hole did we see that modeling. So based on that test hole, we don't anticipate the sump pump is going to be running often. And that was the case from talking to the homeowners as well. They've never had water in their basement. No sump pumps now. Their basement is a couple feet above where the proposed will be, but based on the soil testing, we don't anticipate that sump pump will be running regularly. Just be a safety factor. While we were doing the soil testing for the depth of the basement, we unfortunately realized that, well, fortunately we found this out, but we found that the existing detention system wasn't installed in the location it was proposed back when it was originally constructed, and it was actually proposed, half of it was where the addition is going. So on the revised plans, you'll see that we are proposing to eliminate that detention system and install a new detention system that will be of equal and actually larger size of storage capacity of that existing system, plus what we need to control water quality for the proposed addition and patio. Since we have some space constraints now with the addition going in, we are proposing a 4-foot deep gallery, which will actually bring us to the same bottom elevation that the existing detention system is. So we anticipate it'll operate just as the existing one is. The bottom elevation is the same soils it's going to be infiltrating into, just a deeper system after fill was added after when the last development happened. The other point of concern was the vegetation on the slopes, downgrading of the cable fence towards the pond. When we were on site, in our opinion, it was pretty well stabilized with vegetation. There wasn't a planting plan submitted on the prior approval, so we can't say if it was, installed per plan, as there wasn't a plan on file. I believe it was just discussed with staff at that time. But in our opinion, it's pretty well vegetated now and controls the slopes. There wasn't any signs of erosion. In our opinion, if we were to propose any more plantings, it would probably just be more of a detriment to those steep slopes than a benefit. Once we disturb that, we're not confident that we'd be able to reestablish those slopes, as they are very steep down to the river from the cable fence. And we're not disturbing those slopes as part of our project anyway. So if we can avoid those at all costs, I think that would be a benefit. Those were pretty much the two big ticket items. The footing drain the footing drain outlet is the same as it was before, where the existing one is. I believe the one comment from Darren and DPW, the town engineer, was that it's pointing towards the neighboring property. We have no problem throwing a 22 on there and pointing it more towards the pond. The reason it was located where it is because it's perpendicular with the existing topography. So that's the way the water is going to flow, regardless of where we point it. So we figured we put it where the existing one is the least disturbance as possible. And that also sort of goes with his other comment of installing a level lip spreader instead of the riprap splash pad that we have shown now. Same thing with a level spreader. That's just going to be a lot more disturbance on slopes. So we're trying to minimize the slopes as much as possible. And if we can avoid level spreaders on footing drain outlets, that's usually what we try to do, because you can see where it daylights, level spreaders tend to get covered up and abandoned over time. There was one more thing that this is more of a planning and zoning commission item, but I will mention it anyway since it's shown on the plans. There's an existing boulder wall on the west portion of the property that they want to sort of reorient to create more yard space. No work within the wetlands or anything like that. They're just relocating an existing wall and removing some fill from the property. So that'll be reviewed with the Planning and Zoning Commission for their excavation and fill permit. I figured I would bring that up as well since it's a change to the plans. Another change was the construction entrance. We found that we couldn't get a machine around the east side of the property where we originally had it. So they removed the stone wall on the west side to access the rear yard from the driveway. So we think that will keep the site a lot more stable during construction as well. It's a lot more flat over there and more room to play. That essentially sums up all the changes we had. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Okay. Carolyn, would you like to start us off?
Okay. So I don't wish to belabor the point about the vegetation, but, you know, and not knowing what the original requirements were from the 2011 permit, I just wonder if it would, you know, given that there's some bare spots and there's a few, and I noticed that there are a couple of invasive shrubs growing there. Euonymus was one that I noticed. If it just might not be a bad idea to have a landscape professional just make some suggestions for specific types of native plants and shrubs that might grow in some of the flat areas. I understand your concern with not wanting to create erosion and sedimentation issues by disturbing the extreme slope, but in some of the flatter areas that you know, kind of go on the side where the path kind of goes down, if maybe something could be put in there. And also, you know, perhaps where the riprap outlet comes out, given that there might be a concern with it going onto the neighboring property, you know, maybe some plantings could be put there as well to kind of slow things down. I mean, I just feel, you know, we are, you know, charged with, you know, protecting, preserving, and maintaining our town's natural resources, and with protecting the inland wetlands and water courses. And I just, you know, I just think it probably couldn't hurt to put some things in there without, you know, nothing, you know, terribly complicated, but just, you know, where some of the weeds and grass are, I think it probably couldn't hurt to put some plantings and some shrubs.
Or at least clean up the invasives too.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, there's also like some trees in there that, where the water comes down, over time you can kind of see the root structure appearing, maybe like around the trees, there could be something put too. I just, like I said, I wouldn't consider it heavily vegetated, but, like I said, I don't know what was originally required with the 2011 permit.
Thank you, Carolyn. Lauren?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm on board with Carolyn's suggestion of the planting plan. And I guess just to build on her point as well about the neighbor being downstream, did we sufficiently show that the increase in water wouldn't affect that neighbor directly?
Harry?
Yes, we're, well, first off, downstream is a tough, I mean, the pond is downstream. The neighbor is, their property is to the side of ours. But as far as the stormwater management, yes, we're controlling the first inch of runoff for all impervious surfaces on the property, including the previous ones, driveway, residence, addition, and patio. So in our opinion, yes, we're controlling stormwater runoff to the neighbors per the Darien drainage manual.
Rick, do you think that what Harry submitted was sufficient to show that?
Has reviewed this and identified some de minimis changes, but perhaps we can state for the record unequivocally that the proposal or the project as proposed will not result in an adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties or the slope. And again, we rely on what has been proposed by this engineer and has been reviewed by the Darien town engineer as well. So, I would like them to make to find it to be in agreement with it, but maybe just a clear and concise statement tonight will support the application.
Okay, great. That was all I had for this one. Thanks.
You want Harry to respond? Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with what I said before. We submitted a drainage analysis, that adheres to the Darien drainage manual to control the first inch of runoff and treat that for water quality, as this is in a coastal area with water bodies downstream. We do that, and as I said, my original summary that since we're removing the existing detention system, we're providing equal and more storage than is required. For instance, the water quality volume that we're required to treat on this property for all impervious surfaces is 333 cubic feet. We're providing a storage volume of 430 cubic feet. So about 25% more than we're required to treat. So in our opinion, we're providing a sufficient stormwater management runoff for this property and the proposed development, as well as the existing conditions on site that we're changing for the addition foundation.
Chairman, I speak?
Sure, Bob.
And the protections for the slope are adequate to coming out of those pipes are not going to cause an erosion problem in your opinion?
I'm sorry, I could only hear portions of what you said. If you could repeat, please.
And the protections that you offered for the riprap pad and the outlet of those pipes, are they sufficient to adequately protect not only the adjoining property owner, but the slope itself from the effect?
Yes, for the footing drain discharge, yes, especially after our soil testing data where we don't anticipate there will be much discharge to this riprap level spreader. Yeah, definitely we believe that won't create any adverse impacts to the steep slopes or Gorman's Pond itself.
Is that good, Laura?
Yes, thank you.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay, Peter?
No further questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bill Wright?
No questions.
Jim?
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then, from what I get from what Carolyn brought up was, I think we need to condition to clean up the invasives. Okay, and I think her suggestion of having a landscape architect person go out there to take a look at things, see what is possible without being excessive, and that if they could present a planting plan to you,
Yes, sir.
Rick, to make sure that's done. I think that would be sufficient. Is that okay, Carolyn? That the planting plan be approved by Rick?
Yeah, I like I said, I don't really want to belabor the point. I think my only issue was that on the record, I forget which, it might have been the September 29th statement, characterized the slope as being heavily vegetated. I think that's just kind of what I have an issue with, because I wouldn't consider it heavily vegetated. Whether or not it needs to be heavily vegetated is another question. It's just that it's not. And that was really only the point that I was trying to make. And that if in fact it is supposed to be heavily vegetated, I do think that there are some bare spots and there is some room on some of the flatter areas to make some minimal changes.
So I think we're all in agreement that we should have a professional go out there who understands this and make a proposal and have an opinion presented to Rick, okay, who will review it.
Yeah.
For staff, and I think that's important condition.
Yep, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay, does anybody have anything else on this one? Okay, Rick, then we'll.
And the only other thing is that the final product is subject to the de minimis changes that the engineering has proposed.
Correct. Okay, good. Moving on to new business, EPC 39-2021, Jeff Bluestein and Margaret Konopask, I apologize for the mispronunciation, 49 Stony Brook Road, to demolish existing flood damaged vehicular traffic bridge, private, and construct a new bridge, abutments, wing walls, driveway approaches, and other related features in and proximate to wetlands, a watercourse, Stony Brook, and a special flood hazard areas. The property lies along the west side of Stony Brook, approximately 1,000 feet south of Leroy, and is identified as map number 19, lot number 28. It's a zone R1, and it's more or less 3.05 acres. Okay, Tim, are you with us?
Yes, good evening. Tim DeBartolomeo with Sound Engineering Associates, representing Mr. Bluestein and Ms. Konosback. So tonight, what I'd like to do is give everyone a status of where things are, because we are still submitting information to the town.
I should make that clear that I don't know if you saw this by Rick's follow-up memo, that he has requested information that I believe would be a benefit to the commissioners, and that is it fair to say, a work in progress?
It is a work in progress. So this bridge was taken out in Storm Ida, and we have been working diligently to prepare a comprehensive plan to address, ideally what we had to do was get the owners some kind of access to their house. This bridge cut off the access between their house and the street. So what we wanted to do was we came to the town very early, and we did some temporary measures so that they can at least get pedestrian access across their house. And I can share my screen and show some of the photos of what it looks like. We can go from there. But so since then, we did a bridge design, and that has been submitted. The town has been very helpful in the fact that, offering to have a special meeting when necessary. Now, we're probably going to request that at some point. We needed a hydraulic study done on the river, just to show that what we're proposing is not going to have any impacts upstream or downstream. The existing bridge had about a 15-foot span across the stream bed. We're proposing to increase that to 20 feet. The reason being is that particular bridge was a choke point on Stony Brook in that immediate vicinity. And it increased the flood velocities quite a bit during those events. So we're going to try and improve the conditions here. Well, not try, we will improve the conditions here. And in order to do that, we need to demonstrate that wasn't going to have any unintended consequences upstream or downstream. So at the request of the town engineer's office, Len DeAndrea's office, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, has performed that analysis. They completed that analysis today. They have not finalized the submittal to the town, but the analysis, I'm glad to report, shows that there is no impact upstream or downstream. I have some information to share if anybody's interested in that. But we did look at that, and shows that in fact there's a slight decrease in floodwaters elevation upstream towards the Middlesex Road. Very, very slight, and no impact downstream. So that being said, I've been corresponding and meeting with Rick on a number of matters. Rick had provided a letter of 13 items that we are preparing responses to. Those responses will be coming shortly. DeAndrea's office will have their submittal shortly. We expect to have that information within the next week and a half to 2 weeks. So at that time, we will have all this information to the town, and all the information that Rick has asked has been nothing unreasonable, nothing that is something that we need to. Everything here we can accommodate very, very easily. So we'll have that information to him as soon as possible, and then we'll be providing a better update on the 9th at the Planning and Zoning hearing.
Okay, because of the devastating structure damage, I, as chair, have offered to hold a special meeting whenever you get this information together, so that this can be expedited. As I feel, it's not my neighbor personally, but as a neighbor in Darien, I want to be as responsive. I want to be as responsive as possible, and I'm sure it reflects all the commission members here.
We're all appreciative.
Shocking to see.
Yeah, we're all appreciative of that. The owners are very appreciative of that. They understand that the pressure's on us to get the information to you in a timely manner. We're going as quickly as we physically can, and as soon as we have that information, we'll be requesting that meeting as soon as possible. Ideally, we'd like to have this all ready to go before Thanksgiving. We'd like to have approvals in hand before Thanksgiving or shortly thereafter if possible, so we can start construction and before the weather really turns. That's the goal right now.
Good. So considering that we don't have all this information, I'll ask the commission members if they have any questions or comments, because we have Tim online here. And if there's we've all gone through the package. if there's any, if any one of you have a specific question or comment that, to Tim and would like him to address, maybe he has the answer on the tip of his tongue, maybe he doesn't. Jim, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. Chairman. We have some new members of our very good commission. If you have not been out to see this site that this family is living with, you must make time to do so. I say that because I did go to 49 Stony Brook only a few days after the storm, and I met, is it Miss Konopask, from a 40-foot gap across this driveway that has been completely removed, kind of an elevated driveway that passed over the Stony Brook to get to their pretty home, and she was out with her young children. I was breathless. I was completely stunned with what I saw. And, you know, we'll keep it short on the power of nature and the storm and the damage it created there. But I had several thoughts. Is it Tim commented there was some pedestrian access that was created with the help of contractors. There was some other things going on which were essential. And again, I would urge all of our commission members, to see it, because I can't describe the conditions from a blueprint that I did receive in Jeremy's package. And I just urge this commission and all of the approval participants in our good town to accelerate whatever is needed, get it done so this family can get back to living normally. There's a very serious safety issue that underlies a not having this family be able to rebuild this immediately. You can't get an ambulance to this home tonight, or a fire engine to get to this home, nor for the past 45 days, to address an emergency of that nature if it were need be. We just have to throw the book away and get these people back up with a rebuilt home access for lots of reasons. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, is there a way we can get a copy of what those 13 requests are? We could all learn from this, because I'm not sure. Those questions probably are very informational, and
Part of your
I'd love to
package,
see them.
It was part of your package?
It was part of my package, the 13 pieces? Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. All right, 13 questions. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, they're really good. They're
Let
really,
me ask you,
really well written.
maybe there's one that was, maybe there's one that's on there already, and I shouldn't be asking it, but the clearance level between the bottom of the stream bed and the first beam, is the height of that equal to about the Middlesex Bridge? Just because, as we know, in those storms, huge amounts of debris comes down, logs, and they end up damming up. And I'm just curious, if that's about the same height as the Middlesex Bridge.
I don't know what the height at Middlesex Bridge is off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up. But the bottom of what's going back in is approximately at the same elevation as what was there. So we're not making that any worse. It does extend. There is a you'll see on the drawings, the base flood elevation is slightly higher than the underside of the lowest beam on the bridge. So there is a condition where during that event, the bridge frame has to resist that flood loads. However, we're designing it as such. So it's going to be designed to be overtopped.
Okay.
Okay.
No, and I also agree we need to get this going as quick as possible. So.
Thank you. No, the owners greatly appreciate the town sentiment for that. I can speak for them on that for sure.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, so I'll be the fourth commissioner to echo the same comment. I did see the washed out remnants. Actually, the remnants were removed at that point. I only saw the temporary bridge on Sunday. And I echo that we are here to be as assistive as possible. I did have one question, so please excuse the question. It's not meant to slow things down, but it's more to be informed. I'm wondering if Mr. Bartolomeo has any thoughts on the proximate cause of what caused the original bridge to wash out. Was it the height? Was it the structure? Was it the footings? And, you know, maybe just briefly, how do we ensure that these good residents don't have a repeat of this event from an engineering point of view?
Well, Mr. McGinnis, that's a great question. I'm happy to answer that. Based on my observations, there was a deep scour pit created right at the bridge. As I mentioned earlier, the bridge, that bridge location happened to be a particular choke point on Stony Brook. When you have a choke point like that, it increases the velocity, the floodwater velocities greatly. This actually, from a point about halfway from this bridge to Middlesex, the velocities were measured, I'm going by memory, but about 4 feet per second. At this bridge, this is right from the FEMA manual. At this bridge, it was it's about double that. Okay, so just to give you scale, double the velocities of the waters because of the restrictions of this. What it did was it undermined the foundations on both sides of the bridge. And once it undermined, it not only undermined the bridge, the foundations of both sides, it eroded the backside of the eastern abutment and eliminated any kind of support it had against the soil. So both of those abutments came down. They were fully undermined. They were not too deep below the stream bed elevation. One of the first things we did, because, you know, in our objective to do exactly what you said, how do we put a bridge back that we can be comfortable with, that's going to survive an event like this again, or a greater one? We had a soil boring contractor come out there, and you know, we would have liked to have him do test borings on both sides, but you know, obviously his truck couldn't get across. He'd get on one side. What we found was bedrock at about 12.5 feet below grade, which is, interestingly enough, only about 4 feet below the stream bed. Okay. So in speaking with the contractors about how do we reach bedrock, how do we found the bridge abutments on bedrock, which would be ideal, the prospect of excavating 4 feet is a challenge, and the prospect of installing a coffer dam, a steel dam to dry it out to be able to excavate safely, is not easy either, because bedrock is so shallow. So it's in this really weird place where rock is too shallow to really safely excavate, but shallow enough where you really want to get at it. So what we're proposing here is to install short steel, what's called mini piles, that we can install underneath where the abutment foundations will be, and set the foundation on those. So the bridge will be founded on rock ultimately, and that will assure us that even if it ever, for some reason, ever did get undermined, then it still wouldn't be in jeopardy of failure, because it would be sitting on rock in the end. Okay, So that's the objective right now. Now, there's a cost associated with that. We're looking at options of right now. We're still seeing if we can get the footing a little bit deeper. We have a sense that maybe rock might rise in elevation on the other side because grade goes up and there's exposed ledge rock near the house. So there's an opportunity that once we start excavating over there, we're going to encounter rock, which would be wonderful. So we're looking at all those options right now. And
Right, so some form of piering structure, if you are a pier into the
Yes.
bedrock, and then that pier would then attach to the structure of the bridge, which
exactly.
presumably would have a higher elevation than the original bridge, and that combination.
Well, we're going to match. Rick and I had this conversation the other day. We're going to match the roadway where it is now, where it was, because if we try to raise that any significant height, it's going to create a need for an approach as you get toward the bridge, and that's going to act as, and that's going to be in the floodway or in the flood zone and the floodway, I suppose. And that's going to have a counter effect on what we're trying to achieve. So the idea was, let's keep the roadway where it is. These folks just had their driveway paved about a few weeks prior to this event, so it really was a shame. I want to mention while we're all here, just as a point of reference, we have been working with Darren's office, the town engineer's office, with regard to protection of the town sewer system. In the drawings, you'll note that the town sewer easement runs right across Stony Brook, across this property, and very close to our bridge. So in discussions with the engineer's office, what we did was we did two things. One is we kept the bridge fully out of the sewer easement. We've located the sewer itself at 2 points on either side of the bridge, and we believe that the sewer itself is approximately 5 to 6 feet away from where the bridge abutment is going to be. One of the questions that Rick has had on his list of 13 questions is how do we assure protection of that sewer line during construction? So what we're going to do is we're going to provide a methodology of how that's going to be done. So we'll work with the engineer's office to assure that there's no compromise of that very important line.
My only other suggestion is, and I know you're rightfully so focused on the bridge, but in the interest of completeness, there may be some trees, particularly on the eastern abutment, where the root system has been undermined by the water flow. So I would suggest, and I think they've in fact been marked with fluorescent red tape marker. If those are coming out, I would just reflect that. It may not be on your schematics, but a separate schematic that this is what the homeowners wish to do, just to keep the entire record straight as to the direction of the plan, and it certainly would avoid having to come back a second time.
I appreciate that, and you reminded me that I failed to mention that part of the team here is William Kenny and Associates office. So Bill Kenny has been out on site, and he's going to prepare he's either going to prepare a planting plan, or he's going to provide information for me to put on my plan.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim, for the excellent explanation. Lauren?
Yeah, so I absolutely am on board, understand the urgency, and Carolyn and I and Rick actually did go out to see the site as well. Just one quick question, the pedestrian bridge, does that go away after? Okay, it's only
Yes, yeah,
temporary.
that's strictly an emergency access. So there was an earlier version that was a little less robust than what's out there now. And that was out there for the first few days. We brought in a marine gangway that clear spans it and got it up nice and high. Even in that nor'easter, it didn't get to that height. So we were very happy. We were watching it. We were very happy that it performed well. And so that's when that comes out, that whole area, it's sitting on temporary concrete blocks. That's all going to be restored, and the riverbank is all going to be replanted. So, excuse me, basically going to restore that both riverbanks back to their pre-construction conditions.
And I guess I just had one more quick question for the group. When can we expect to see the answers, I guess, after you receive them initially, to the additional questions?
I think well, Rick will accumulate all the answers, okay, when Tim has them, right? And then he'll be forwarding them out to all of us. Okay, and we'll have time to review it then before we have a formal meeting like this. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, so it will be not our next monthly meeting, but before then, assuming,
We don't know.
right?
Okay,
Okay.
that depends on when, that depends on how quickly Tim can put his package together to how quickly he can put it together. Now, the question is, if he were to get it together and by Monday, then we'll schedule something much more quickly. Otherwise, if not, there's the next monthly meeting, and we can, we will keep this item open, and maybe it's then. Okay, we're waiting on Tim. Okay, and to whether we have a special meeting or not. But one thing we do is once we get the information, we'll have sufficient time to review it so that the commissioners members can take what he has, go and visit the property again to make sure that we've accomplished. He has accomplished everything that Rick has asked for.
No pressure on me.
Okay, and so we'll just look out via email for that then.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Carolyn?
Hi, I just had the same question that Peter raised, which was there's that one very large, beautiful tree that's next to the proposed rebuilding of the bridge, and you can see the roots. It looks like if it comes down, it's going to take their power out as well. So I was wondering, I hadn't noticed that was planned to come out, but that tree will be removed? Or we're not sure yet?
I had spoken to the owners about that. That's still under the decision is pending.
It's a beautiful tree, I know.
I know.
But we'll have our answer when he gets this package. When he puts his complete
will.
package together, we'll have the answer.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
So then we'll hopefully save the question for either the special meeting the next time we meet on this. Okay, anybody else would like to say something? Peter?
This is way out of my bounds, and I apologize for this, but I just want to be sure that someone in town hall or Jeremy, I don't know if the FEMA assistance is available in this situation, but if not, that at least the applicants are aware, because we now have the federal declaration that's made.
Yeah, certainly that's the key is the applicants want to reach out to Mark McEwen, who's the emergency management officer. You're correct, Peter. Declaration has been made. So that may give an opportunity, but they'd have to speak directly to Mr. McEwen at the EOC and help them out as to what might be possible. I will note, Tim, I'm going to email you later tonight. You're on for P&Z for Tuesday, and then we can talk about scheduling that, whether we push that back a week. In other words, allowing you to present to P&Z just once instead of twice. I'll email you to discuss that.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. That's fine. Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything to talk
Hi,
about?
good evening. It's Jeff Bluestein. Can I have just a moment? Can you hear me?
Sure. Please.
Great. Thanks everyone. Really appreciate getting together on this topic, and certainly appreciate everyone's commitment to moving the process along as quickly and expeditiously as possible. I welcome all to come out and see, as someone may have mentioned, seeing is believing. It's quite an extraordinary thing what nature has done. As a family, we've done what's necessary to adjust to our new bridgeless life, and everything is going fine. But fortunately, it's been a mild fall and so far calm weather. Winter is quickly approaching, will make things more complicated with snow and ice. So that's something that's certainly on our minds. Tim has done a nice job at moving things along as quickly as possible, as well as the rest of the team. And we will continue to respond accordingly as soon as there's questions, we get them answered. Please feel free to stop by during normal, call it normal business hours during the day. And if we're around, we're happy to answer any questions. I appreciate the note about the FEMA declaration. I just saw that. I was going to begin just the online process, but if there's a local resource that can help us walk through it and has some tips, I certainly welcome that resource. So I may follow up on that item.
Good.
Other than that, I am fully available if there's any specific questions to us, the homeowners, and we're looking forward to a new bridge. And thank you for all your help.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for addressing us. Commission members, any last questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Tim. Tim, feel the pressure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on our agenda here, we have the approval of minutes. I believe everybody has a copy of the minutes. Peter, you mentioned that you had some questions or comments?
Yeah, just a quick comment on page 2, second to last line. Mr. McGinnis was concerned about the sump pump drainage and any effect on the water table. It's actually the converse. I was concerned about the water table in the proposed basement addition affecting the drainage or discharge into a regulated area.
Okay, we've got that correction. Rick's writing it down. Anything else, Peter?
That's it. Thank you.
That's it. Anybody else have any questions or comments? No? Okay, then may I have Jim Millar, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our October 6, 2021 meeting of the Environmental Protection Commission.
All right, may I have a second?
Second it.
Second, without objection, so moved. Any other business? What do we have? We did the meetings one. What else did we have? Well, there was a second topic, wasn't there?
About the initial process of when things are submitted.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that?
The commission is, when is an application dated received? And so the state statute says, you can establish a submittal date, but technically it can be, an applicant can submit up to 1 full day before a regular scheduled. There's other caveats in it to about 35 days within, if it's submitted like mid-month. But generally, somebody who submits an application, you have to establish a date of receipt, and everything works off that date of receipt. So initially, if you have a an application, you're supposed to render a decision on that application within 65 days. And you can getting extensions for it. It's a little bit different if you have a public hearing about your actual decision deadlines. But one thing I at least observed was applications were being submitted, they're being taken up by the commission members at that first month's meeting. And I think everybody has kind of expressed, or a number of people have expressed, including myself, does that give everybody enough sufficient time to digest the materials and, if need be, go out and get a field inspection? So I would suggest, as I have been familiar with in Stanford and previously in Greenwich, is that first month's meeting where things are submitted is that it's the opportunity to establish the receipt date. Little in the way of discussion, except if the board or commission decides if it wants to have a public hearing or not. And then between that first meeting date and the second is when you can conduct your inspections at a more leisurely pace, digest the materials. Often, it's pretty significant, the pile of paper you receive and the technical information you receive. You have a little bit more time to digest it. And staff has time to go out and do an inspection and, develop a list of information like I did for Stony Brook, that is taking an application, no matter how raw it is, and kind of boiling it down to something that is, remotely acceptable and is going to hit the major topics and focus on the discussion. So I would suggest is the process being, it gets submitted, you establish at that first month's meeting, you're establishing the receipt date, and we're working from that forward, and you make a determination if you want to have a public hearing or not. But little in the way of more than a cursory discussion of that item, and allow yourself the opportunity to digest the materials and go out and do inspections if necessary. So I think that we talked about it briefly in the past couple of days, and welcome your suggestions and input. But I think that usually works out better decisions are made.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was going to say, if I could add to it, I know Rich Jacobson always found it a little frustrating that stuff would trickle in before the meeting as folks scrambled to get on the agenda, and what they would usually put forth was not always complete, and then there'd be continuations anyways, and this really gives more cohesion, more formality to the whole process, and really is an opportunity for the EPC at that first meeting to say, hey, you're missing this, we're waiting for that, give me a chance to go out to the site. So there'll be a whole different rhythm to it, but things will be in better shape when you see them. But really that first meeting will be a determination. Do we want to have a hearing on this, yes or no? And if no, if there's any missing material or anything else, it's our opportunity. But Rich Jacobson had talked about this situation many times to me. We had many conversations. And when Rick started, it really is a good way to get us off on the right foot.
Yeah, speaking for myself, I have, when I looked at what Rick produced for Stony Brook, I thought it was extensive, and I thought it was really interesting because the engineer, it really puts, in this case, Tim's feet to the fire to understand and answer the questions that we have to be responsible for. Is this going to create, serious long-term effect on the wetlands and water courses? And I think that when I get the answers on of the 13 questions, I'm going to be personally better equipped to make that decision. And that's what that's why I believe it to be good for the commission. Now, I would like to hear the commission members to see what you guys think, to see if that's the way we should go forward with this. I'll start with you, Jim.
Thank you, Eric. I guess I'm a little bit at a loss, and therefore I'll pose the question. It sounds like Rick's suggestion, and in the interest of compliance, perhaps with the 65-day test, that we're looking to have more information prior to saying, okay, this application for Stony Brook, let's say, or any other homeowner here in town, is decided as of this date, not just the date it's received at town hall. Am I getting that right, Jeremy? But the date that the application arrives at town hall, but there's a week or 10 days or other information required to actually complete the file, and therefore red date stamp it. Okay, this application is now started on this date, not the date it arrived on Jeremy's desk or Rick's desk,
Very
but
clear. Right, that it's not when someone drops a piece of paper in our office.
right.
It's the next regularly scheduled meeting. But the statutes have been clear. And the reason for that is, there's benefits and drawbacks. The timing is outlined in the state statutes that EPCs and then other land use boards as well have to make decisions within a certain time frame.
Right.
The only difference in the statutes is if a wetlands commission does not decide something in time, it is not automatically approved. Whereas for certain types of applications for the planning and zoning commission, if they don't act within the time frame, it is automatically approved for certain items.
Yeah, PNC really works against the clock.
Right.
Much more, because it's automatically approved if they don't. Well, ours isn't. And and if it goes beyond, can't they appeal to they can appeal to DEP to the state, and the state will get around to it in a year or so to approve it. So I'm not worried. In my 8 years here, I've never really seen many have been extended beyond the 65 days, but that's because we had a number of public hearings, there wasn't complete information and things like that that created that situation, and the applicant agreed to extend the time period. So there wasn't any contention. There wasn't any contention about that. Jim?
I mean, I'm a rules-based kind of guy, and I think I like where Rick is trying to help us, guide us to be in compliance with state statutes, yet be fair not only to ourselves as we try to deliberate a complete package of information, and also be fair to Rick's office and Jeremy's and everybody else at town hall. Just, I don't think I ever realized, Jeremy, that perhaps Rich Jacobson felt a little frustration over many years of people running in on a Tuesday afternoon to try and get on the agenda for Wednesday, 24-hour later Wednesday meeting. I think it's prudent of us to have a procedure in black and white that says if an application is received and it's determined that there are other elements in order to make it, quote, complete, then the clock for deliberations starts at the point at which it is complete. I think that's where you're trying to get us to be, right, Rick?
I mean, I think the point is to establish a receipt date that the statute says that you have to, how you have to start your review process. I think, I think it's important that you are giving yourself the opportunity and your staff the opportunity and any other staff that is providing referral comments to make sure that it is technically correct. So, just as an example with this bridge application, they got it in, they had advanced the structural component, but they did not advance for things to ensure that the impact analysis was taken care of appropriately, addressing dotting all your I's and crossing your T's. Very important with these applications in the floodplain, that there's no rise, that there's no impact in velocities, et cetera. That's important for the EPC to look at and to confirm. The other thing is how you're constructing the logistics of the plan, dewatering, making sure, and I certainly picked up on making sure that they're not going to damage the sanitary sewer. And that all comes with, experience, but you want to make sure that they're technically correct, that you're restoring the beds, anything that's going to protect and enhance the well. It's very unfortunate, but we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And then at some point down the road, when we have another situation, but that no one comes back, points the fingers, the EPC approved that, and they didn't confirm that there was a zero rise in the floodway elevation. And now I'm receiving damage. We want to make sure it's right. Of course, we want to help these people. We want to make sure it's right and that the resources are protected.
Agree 100%.
Bill, any questions or comments on Rich's?
It's certainly the more complete package we have, the heck of a lot easier it is for us. When we have these, almost half-ass proposals sometimes, it's just annoying. We have to go back on. And the other harp I always like push in is we need to have these people stake out a lot of these developments so we don't have to go out there and start guessing where things are. Not all of them need to be staked out, but they really should be, and that should be a requirement. They know where they're going to be, but we have to guess when we go out on the scene. Put up a stake where all the corners are, make it easier on us, and we can make our evaluation a lot more complete. So along with what you're talking about, I'd love to add that in there as well. Thanks.
Okay, but it does make it easier to visualize where things are, as opposed to, because none of us are professionals like you are to be able to say no, to walk it off or something like that.
Yeah.
Carolyn?
Well, I definitely agree with Bill that having a property staked out would be helpful in terms of being able to evaluate its impact. In terms of the timing, I mean, we three of us this is only our second meeting, so I guess I haven't felt the I don't want to say the rush, but I absolutely feel that being able to have adequate time I think it's extremely important to go out and visit the properties and to have more time to be able to do that and to make sure that the information that we have on hand prior to doing that is complete is really, really important. So I would be in favor of this.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I think the staff, Rick and Jeremy's team must do a phenomenal job handling these applicants. And frankly, they're contractors and engineers. So I'm kind of thinking that a lot of the time ticking and the completion of the application, I don't mean to push this a little bit back to an already work staff, has to be within the office because they're the ones receiving the papers and know when the application started or when it didn't start. So, a couple of things come to my mind is one, maybe in relation to this 13-point summary, that when someone hands a piece of paper in, there should be a receipt delivered to the applicant saying your application is not complete. Maybe it spits out of this system or not. Here are the things that are missing, and until we get it, your application won't be considered complete.
Well, that's what
So that
happened.
was one thing.
I mean, typically somebody submitted them in, but the advice that I always received was, unless there's, something egregious that's missing, you take the application, you note it as received, and start the time clock, and then you ask. So if somebody, it's a cleaner way of doing applications or reviewing applications. And I mean, if something was egregious, yes, that, they didn't provide any plans, or they didn't fill out the application form. if there was something missing on the application form, like a lot number or something like that, my opinion, it's not a reason to discard the application or not take it in order to start the time clock. But you can certainly point it out and ask for that information. So I think there's some discretion in that, but I would not, you have to really look at it individually.
So what you're saying is when the application is substantially complete, when it's at the point where a reasonable commission like ours can make a decision based upon what's been submitted.
Is it a reasonable to start the process? Again, Stony Brook is a great example. Is that they spent under duress, time and attention working on the structural elements, but they got it in, and they wanted to clock the receipt date, which is statutory, but at the same time, knowing that there's a lot of civil elements that need to be addressed to ensure that the resources are protected.
There was also something that Mr. Bluestein said, which just triggered a thought, and I think it's connected to this because the one thing that's apparent, at least on Stony Brook, is that all of us did take some time out to visit the site because it was an important matter before the commission. But one thing he did say, which was kind of interesting because it did click in my mind, he said, come by at reasonable business hours. Now, I was there on a Sunday. I don't consider Sunday to be a reasonable business hour, but reasonable business hour would be where I'd be at my otherwise paying job. So unfortunately, I cannot be at a location from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. But what it did do is did cause me to kind of think about whether on site visits there should be some coordination with Jeremy's team so that we can either make these visits. I'm not saying all together. I don't think we'd ever get all 7 of us, but if I understood Carolyn correctly on the last applicant, she and Lauren and Rick did go together, which I think is wise because it makes certainly there are no discussions, I'm sure, or deliberations as would be proper, but on a site visit there is an efficiency to do it as a group or as a partial group. I don't know how to do that again given the normal business hour constraint, but I just throw that out there as part of the application process and maybe tangential to what we're all talking about.
Here, look, let me go. Peter, one thing we have to be conscious of is if there's 4 of us together, 4 is a quorum. And so by state statute, we have to notice meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So like 3 of us can meet and go with Rick to visit a site, and that's no problem. If there's 4, we just can't be together as a group. If all of us were 7, there could be 3, 2, and 2 or something like that, walking around visiting the property, but not together as a group, because there's legal ramifications, as you can appreciate. So I would caution you to say yes, meet your fellow commissioners, have a cup of coffee, do this, but be careful of the 4-person rule. Okay, normal business hours. That was the first request I've ever heard of that, because I don't think you want somebody going there in the middle of the night. But then I'm not sure what he was thinking, because some of us some of us do hold down daytime jobs, and it's just not convenient. Okay, so it's not convenient for us. Now, I have to say I visited many a property on a Saturday or a Sunday, and never, the only time I got thrown off a property was when it was 4:30 on a Friday, and some guy threw me off his property, and so that was a normal business hour, and I guess he was having a bad day. And so I'm not sure, I think he just wants us to be sensitive that, not to appear at, some strange hour. But normally I visited lots of properties on Saturdays and Sundays, and so I think he just wants us to be sensitive as opposed to, 9 to 5, because, lots of us do,
I think in terms of the quorum though, just don't do it. That's all you have to do is you can't go out there in groups. I mean, a couple, like we went the other day, I'm happy to go out there with, at a couple at a time. You always have to be cautious because there is legal ramifications because then you have to notice a meeting, then they have the right, the applicant has the right to attend, and they can cross-examine you, and there's a whole bunch of things. So the best practice is just don't do it.
just don't meet with 4. Yeah, just don't meet with 4, and so and then you don't have to worry about it, because I've had meetings with 3, and over the years, and walked properties with 3. We walked, what do we walk? 49 Sunswick. We walked. What was by the high school?
The Diller property?
Diller property. The Diller property. We walked. A bunch of us. And so, but it was 3, and we made sure it was. Jeremy cracked the whip and said, "Make sure it was 3."
And I think as far as what's a reasonable, you do have to in this day and age too. You certainly don't want to be wandering around, especially in the dark, or at the crack of dawn like we were the other day. But I had set up and I called and let somebody know that we would be there, over on a whatever it was, a Wednesday morning at about 7:30 a.m. and to reasonably expect us. So we can do that. If you expect to go on a weekend, I can certainly make a call to the engineer, the homeowner, and say, you know what, there's board members are going to go there, and if they were having a party, probably wouldn't go when they were having a party. So again, it's reasonable expectation and kind of being sensitive to people's their homes and their property and what they're doing.
And that relates to something Rick and I talked about today. Is many of you may have already received an ID card from the town clerk.
Yes.
Members might not have. If you do not have a card, Rick's going to show it up on the screen. Let me know and raise your hand, and I'll have the town clerk print one up for you. That's 3 new members do not have one. Bill, Jim.
I got one.
I have.
Okay, we'll get to 3 new members. We'll get your IDs cards out to you in the mail.
Mine is this.
I don't know if you've mentioned this to people, but you knock on the door, see if anybody's home, let them know who you are, but beware, dogs. There are some dogs out there. You got to be careful. So I always knock on the door, and if no one's home, I look carefully to make sure there's no dog in an area that I need to be, and I stay clear of those because.
And you carry a dog.
I mean, the other thing too is it may be prudent to go where somebody else is. I love using Stone as an example. Pretty treacherous, pretty dangerous conditions that are out there, just in case you don't want to fall and get hurt, and then no one knows where you are. So again, it's always being reasonable. Go in daylight. Try not to climb through the rebar. Often do something just so you get a sense.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I think that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to talk about. Okay. Hey guys, I think that's
Hey,
it.
I have one other question that I'd like to put out. I've got a problem, and maybe Rick can clarify it. There was some filling in of a wetland down on 14 Nickerson Lane on October 21st, and that never came before us. And it's a tidal area, and the guy filled it all in, a big section of it, huge pile of dirt. And the next day he had his backhoe moving stuff around, and I never saw that come before us. So I need some clarification of why that didn't come to us, or how did the guy just skip around us? Or?
I can fill you in. After the storm on September 1st, we got a number of people who came to the office and talked about maintenance of their waterways. There were 3 that I went out and looked at and approved. One was at 20 Linda Lane. They had a pond in their backyard, a little stream that went through, and then a pond area and then a stream. And you could see that the storm had deposited a huge amount of rocks in the middle of their pond. And it was clearly too much for them to take out with a wheelbarrow or by hand. And I said, well, clearly this wasn't here on August 30th, and it's here today. And to keep the water flowing, yes, based on my site visit and your representations to me in your email, I'm going to say, yes, you can maintain the waterway. There was a second one on Stony Brook Road, actually the neighbors to the Bluesteins, who I met with, who talked about doing work. And I said, well, once you get that, bring it back and we'll decide if it needs an EPC approval. There was one other one about a pond, and I think I gave Eric a copy of the letters. The third gentleman that came in was Mr. Wiggin at 14 Nickerson, and he had shown me photographs of what the storm had done to his, what would you call it, Rick, a brook, stream, probably not.
It's like a
Creek.
channelized.
And it's been there on the town maps for many years. And I said, Mr. Wiggin, I cannot give you an approval. You need to give me a description, a plan, an explanation, and only then can I go out to the site and make a determination if you're just maintaining the waterway or if you're creating a whole new project. And as part of that description, which I don't have here in front of me, he talked about some of the erosion. Some of the rocks along the stream were moved around and scattered. Some of the phragmites were there. And so I said, okay, based on this, you can do this work. And then Bill, you were nice enough to point out the work that was going on. I sent Robert Woodside of our office out, and by then Rick was on board. Rick also has been out there 2 or 3 times in his short tenure here, working with Mr. Wiggin to make sure that what he's doing is within the parameters of the maintenance of the waterway. What happened through time is that channels become a little overgrown. Some of the plantings have started climbing into the brook. There has been clearly some erosion where what used to be lawn is long gone. It's just now dirt. So it does look a little more formal now than it did. He did bring in some fill to, I'll call it, put the lawn back that used to be there. But Rick was out there just this morning, working closely with Mr. Wiggin to ensure that all work is pursuant to the approval and not beyond the approval. So we're trying to keep people in the parameters that we're giving relative to maintenance of water.
So shouldn't the state have been involved with that, since that was tidal wetlands, and instead of us making that call? It's every tide, it covers right over that area.
Right. It's.
All right, well, I'll let it lie, but I'm just wondering, this time it seemed like it got pushed off.
Bill, I think this is different than the situation over on Seagate. I think in this situation on Seagate, they were bringing things in that were not there before. I think that was on, and not shown on any plan.
Well, that's what he did too. He did a lot more there than he did at Seagate, just so you know. But anyway, I like to make sure we're clear next time.
And EPC says, make sure people maintain the waterways. Word maintenance means different things to different people. So what we're trying to do is find that right balance. What can I tell you?
Okay, I'm done.
Great. By the way, maybe you want to tell what happened on Silver Lakes with your letter to the resident on Silver Lakes to take the tree out of.
Right, so we get calls every day about people, especially after a storm, will call and say there's a big tree or obstruction in a waterway, in a pond, in a brook, in a stream that could cause flooding in a future flood event. Can you go out and take a look and have the person remove the obstruction? So there was one on Silver Lakes Road. Again, person called, my neighbor has a tree, it's blocking, could block, might block. So we sent the folks a letter and said, can you move your tree? I don't think it's been done yet.
Okay, no, just curious. Did they have they responded to you or no?
I don't think they have.
Okay, no, just curious if they'd come back to you and go, yeah, let me get it organized, or
I haven't heard any.
okay, but we have no we only have the power of persuasion there. We don't have the power of the power of to say, hey, you must. That's or we have to say pretty please. We can't say you must.
Yeah, certainly there's a sensitivity right after these storms. Everyone is much more sensitive in terms of blockages, things that are blocking culverts, storm drains, ponds, streams, because they can cause damage, they can get moved downstream. Oh, the other one was on was it Meadowbrook Road, Overbrook Road, Peach Hill Road, one street where I went out and I'm like, where did this stuff come from? And the guy said it just came from upstream. It was just pushed down in the storm. So he's stuck, the property owner was stuck having to remove rocks, trees, branches, unnatural things that just get pushed down, and wherever the water stops, that's who gets stuck with the bill.
Yeah. We have to get better. Something tells me we have to get better about that, because and start informing people who abut inland water courses and wetlands.
Yeah, in this situation, you could saw, especially after looking at the bridge at 49 Stony Brook.
Yeah.
One could not have imagined that bridge would just go the way, and you can imagine also what might have gone downstream.
Yeah,
was all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, obviously a lot of asphalt went downstream because they just recently paved, and so I just think at some point we've got to go out and do something to inform the people of our definition of maintenance. Okay, and say, hey, you can go in and take a tree out, just call the office, and just to let us know what's going on, because that is maintenance, but this is not maintenance, and then go through to so at some point we have to take a look at that, Jeremy, to see what do other towns do. There must be, Stanford must have had these sorts of issues of because most of our inland waterways are 80% privately owned, right? So Stanford's got to be in a similar
Yeah, but
situation.
you have to take again, you were right. It's a matter of, you can take a hard line and you can first, make a claim, enforcement action based on your inland wetlands regulation saying it's a deposition in the water course. You can look at your floodplain regulations and say that it was an unpermitted, deposition in a floodway or floodplain resulting in, potential increases in flood heights or damaging velocities. I think you're right. It's often, there's other things too. You look and see what subdivision says for property where it may have had, you're responsible for maintaining the waterways free and unobstructed. There was a lot of that in Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
There were also easements that said you are absolutely responsible for maintaining the free and clear flow of water across your property. So there's a lot of things you can look at that have a little bit more of a hammer. I think you're right. It's more post-storm. Everybody's a little more sensitive to these things. And, the power of persuasion that you're not only, this is for your protection and protect your property, but also your neighbors.
Yeah.
I can't remember ever having to really take a hard stance on those things.
Okay. No, because I just think that, when we look around, and I walk the water courses, as do fellow commission members, I sit there and going, man, that's an issue. I see trees that are, 24 inches in diameter. I look at, there, and I'm going, that's an issue waiting to happen. And I don't know whether to, we've got to come up with, some sort of thinking of how we want to approach those things. Okay, so anyway, just sort of my thoughts. Anyway, anybody else want to talk about something? Okay. Yes, Peter.
Since we're kind of raising a lot of different things, I was just astounded that the Stony Brook, the rapidity of the water and the volume of the water that water course takes on, compared to the Goodwives, where it's looks more like a brook and the brook looks more like a river. I know these terms, tried to find the terms defined in law anywhere, and they're not. for good reason, but it was just, that was fascinating.
What was the statistic that Craig 30 came up with by town hall? The Stony Brook passes by town hall here, and what did he say? How many?
I think it was like 1 million gallons a minute or some ungodly. amount of water.
Imagine 1 million gallons a minute at its height. When I heard that, I was astounded. Okay, because that was like, oh my God, that's that's a hell of a lot of flow. And so and I see these sorts of things, and I go, yeah, Stony Brook. Well, anyway, I guess that's it for tonight. Hey, Jim, can you give a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to make a motion to adjourn this meeting of November 3 of the Environmental Protection Commission. And thank you all for your involvement and participation.
Bill, second?
I'll second it.
Appreciate it. Without objection, so moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Channel 79, we're off the record.
Good night, all.
Good night.